I have a new book out called Godmindfamily, The Human Mind, Behaviour, Symptoms, the Family, Society, Politics, and God's Kingdom Explained. It's available free on my website, robertensor.com, spelled ENSOR, and on Amazon in ebook and paperback formats via the links in the description below. Fear of symptoms and negative beliefs about health are the main mental states that cause symptoms, and they are largely inspired by medical misinformation. Fears typically result from some false belief. If you can see through the mistaken belief, then the fear may disappear. Limiting beliefs hold no power when you realize they only had influence to the extent they were mistakenly believed in. Thus, so much of mind-body healing is simply a case of achieving insight into what is going on. The same principle applies to other problems too, including dysfunctional relationships. The psychiatrist Murray Bowen came up with the concept of self-differentiation. Differentiation was basically Bowen's measure of how emotionally mature people are, the extent to which they are influenced by others and by their own emotions. The level of differentiation is typically determined by the beliefs adopted, the levels of confidence and love. Thus, it is revealed that emotional fusion and poor self-differentiation are not root causes of anxiety and other problems, but are in fact the products of negative beliefs. The anxiety is secondary to the negative beliefs because anxiety is generated and abetted by those beliefs. For example, the expectation or belief that one will be anxious under certain conditions, say inside elevators or when public speaking, becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy when those people get in a lift or give a presentation. What really matters then is actually the extent to which individuals adopt harmful or false beliefs. These beliefs come from the deceiver and people's own thanatos or destructiveness, the parts of the mind that want to mess people up. They generate negative thoughts and emotions, including anxiety, dysfunctional relationships, sin, symptoms, and even poltergeist activity. For more on this topic, see my book, The Ghost Within. The deceiver encourages people's destructive tendencies, the wars, tyrannies, atrocities, inefficiency, ignorance, malicious and self-sabotaging behavior in history and the present, as well as the fear, anger, lust, greed, pride, vanity, temptation, etc. that dominate most people's thinking, are basically a result of sinful human nature exacerbated by the deceiver, who also tries to make people sick. There is a quote attributed to Baudelaire that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he doesn't exist, and this ignorance of the deceiver has enabled a lot of suffering, but only because people believe in the deceiver's effects, including symptoms, anxiety, and vices. Another trick of the deceiver is persuading people, especially religious believers, that he is some terrifying, powerful force. This is a lie. The devil has no power unless he deceives you into believing that he or one of his effects, perhaps a symptom or worry, has power. That's why he is called the deceiver in Revelation 12:9. The deceiver's power is given by people's beliefs and fears and also their ignorance of the demonic. That power is not an inherent property of the deceiver or demons who are intrinsically powerless because in a sense they do not even exist. The deceiver is a non-entity who wants to be a somebody and therefore tries to grab people's attention to shock and disturb. But these ideas do not really have to be disturbing if you realize that they are just nonsense that can be easily ignored. The deceiver is basically an illusion that persists until it has been revealed. Demonic ideas, whether they are symptoms, vices, or even the idea of the devil, only have power to the extent they are believed in. If the false idea is debunked, you no longer believe in it and it loses all of its power. Then it simply passes from the mind. The deceiver never really existed, and resolving him is simply a case of realizing that. This is why, in a sense, evil does not exist. Indeed, the theological doctrine of the privatio boni posits that evil is simply the absence of good. That is why, although the terms devil and demons are theologically valid, I also call them non-entities. It's helpful to think of the devil as a liar and see through his falsehoods. It's even better to think of him as nothing. Understand what he is doing and then realize his illusory nature. Sinners are ultimately responsible for their mistakes. The deceiver and demons just provided false ideas that they wanted to believe in and act upon due to ignorance, their own sin, and the associated guilt or self-loathing. In God, Mind, Body, I outlined an approach of tackling symptoms by understanding TMS and the deceiver, debunking its arguments on the basis of that knowledge, and when the mind-body symptoms and anxiety are properly understood, ignoring them and proceeding to engage in normal activities regardless with confidence.